This regular meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission. It's 1:30 p.m. Today, I think, is January 24th, if I've got that right. And Ms. Womack, would you please tell us about the notices?
The agenda for the Planning Commission regular meeting was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on January 15th. It was amended and reposted in City Hall and on the city portal on January 16th, January 21st, and January 23rd. Public notice for public hearing of partitioning application number 0924-09 for the property located at 87 Henlopen Avenue was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on January 3rd. Public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on January 7th and January 10th, and in Delaware State News on January 8th and January 10th. Notifications specific to this project were mailed out to property owners within 200 feet, and signage was posted on the subject property. Public notice for public hearing of site plan review application number 0523-04, One Rehoboth Avenue Hotel, was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on January 3rd, and on the city portal, The public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on January 7th and January 10th, and in Delaware State News on January 8th and January 10th. Notifications specific to this project were mailed out to property owners within 200 feet, and signage was posted on the subject property. Public notice for preliminary review of site plan review application number 0724-06 Coast Hotel, located at 123 2nd Street, was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on January 3rd. Public notice was published in the Cape Gazette on January 7th and January 10th, and in Delaware State News on January 8th and January 10th. Notifications specific to this project were mailed out to property owners within 200 feet. Signage was posted on the subject property. That's all I have, Chair.
Any mail?
No.
All right. Mr. Dewey, would you call the roll, please, sir?
Beginning with Commissioner Davis, who is out today. Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Strange.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey. Commissioner Stockdale.
Here.
Commissioner Ellison.
Here.
Commissioner Gay.
Here.
And Commissioner Bryan.
Here. We have a quorum, and so I call this meeting to order. First matter on today's agenda is a public hearing of partitioning application number 0924-09 on the matter of the partitioning for the property located in the R1 residential zoning district at 87 Henlopen Avenue, lots 85, 87, and 89. Who's here for that application, please?
Randy Burton, sir.
Yes. Oh, yes, sir.
I have a personal involvement in the matter of 87 Henlopen Avenue. So in accordance with our bylaws of the Planning Commission, I will recuse myself, I will vacate my seat, and I will not be involved in any of the discussions or any action on this item. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Randy Burton. As you all know, I've been a builder in Rehoboth for many years. Mr. Martin has been a client of mine and friend since 1988, as has Mr. Ellison, who's leaving the room or sitting down over there. And I've had the great fortune of working for that family for many years. Unfortunately, Mr. Martin is not able to be here today for health reasons. But I'm prepared to answer any questions or address any concerns that may have come up in the application. I think it's a fairly straightforward application.
Yes, sir. Has anything changed
No, sir.
on the ground or
Well, we've
factually?
begun the selective we have a demolition permit.
Okay.
And all of the pre-construction inspections were done with Mr. Janis a couple of weeks ago, and Mr. Martin has donated that house to Second Chance, so they've been doing the selective deconstruction That'll wrap up today, but other than that, no other changes to the property.
All right.
Okay, I do have a question about a difference between the original arborist report and the notations in the updated building inspector report. So, Mary Ellen, should I address that to you, or those the things you put in? Okay. Because you note here in the project description, well, first of all, the original arborist report was done by,
Sussex Tree.
by Sussex Tree, right? And because we didn't have an arborist at the time, so we don't have an internal arborist report, but what we do have is a paragraph in the final building inspector report that notes that there are a number of trees on the property and that an arborist pre-construction report has been submitted and preliminarily approved by the city arborist, Mike Lilly. And arborist Lilly essentially agrees with the finding, with the exception that the wood borers constitute the removal of a tree, since remediation of the wood borer insects is readily available and is a service providable by local companies. Therefore, are we saying then that they're going to keep the 29-inch oak on the left side of the, closest to the garage, the one that was determined to have wood borers, that will actually not be removed? Only the 32-inch red oak will be removed. Is that correct?
I'd need you to be more specific about what two trees you're talking about. There were
Okay.
two on the arborist report.
Yep.
There is one on the left side of the property as it sits now.
Yeah.
Which will be inside the building restriction line. We have not made an application for removal of that tree at this point. All trees, no trees are being removed on the property during demolition right now.
Okay.
No trees.
Okay.
When we make our formal application for construction of a residence on what will become 89 Henlopen Avenue, we will be requesting that that one tree that is at the left there be removed because it is well within the BRL, but it is the only tree on that entire property of some pretty majestic trees
Right.
that will come down.
Well, I guess the thing that confuses me is the one that's to be removed, it's in poor health, is a 32-inch red oak in the front yard, according
No,
to...
that, we have never made an application to remove that tree.
But the arborist report says it should be removed. But at any rate, the
Well,
other
that's his
one...
opinion, but we don't plan to take it
Okay,
down.
but the city arborist is saying that he does not agree with the removal of the 29-inch red oak on the left side yard, which sounds like the one you're talking about. He does not agree with that.
But again, in this application, we're not requesting any trees come down.
Okay.
In this petitioning request, that report was required in order to make the request.
Right.
For, to identify all the trees that were on the property and for any demolition of the existing structure.
Right.
Just because Mr. Meredith says a tree ought to come down doesn't mean that we're going to take it down.
Right, but there's also one that it sounds like you might take down that our city arborist has now said you shouldn't. So I guess we'll just put that in the approval that will not come down, right? Is that what Mike Lilly was essentially saying, Mary Ellen?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Right, okay.
But certainly, as Mr. Burton is indicating, that the next step to this would be when a building permit application comes in, a tree application permit also needs to be applied for, and then it will be further reviewed.
Okay.
So any trees, should there be a desire to remove any trees, and those would be specifically articulated.
Okay,
And then
that's fine.
that's where that
Then
discussion would occur.
this is just for now.
Mhm,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to
Okay,
know
I
the
just want to
difference.
make sure, though, to clarify, there's not going to be a restriction on this petitioning application for tree removal, because in the city, if you have a tree that's well within the BRL, you can make application and you can do either mitigation of that tree.
And are you saying it will be in the footprint of the new construction?
Yes, ma'am. We have painstakingly designed
Right,
the house to go there
yeah.
to only remove one tree. There are other trees on that property that
Right.
if this was somebody else, they could effectively go to
I
the
understand.
city, make the application, and if it's well within the BRL, it can be mitigated, those trees.
Then I guess I just need to know what to do about the discrepancy between the arborist report and the city report.
Mr. Janice,
If I may,
Yeah,
the code requirement is to submit an arborist report for this application. It's not necessary to identify any trees that are coming down for this. It's just a recordation of what exists on the property today. As we go through with future permitting, that's when the tree application becomes more relative, and then the application itself at that time will be re-reviewed. So this is just a cursory look at what's existing on the property now. When the building permit comes in, there will be other requirements for the tree submission at that time.
Okay, and we already have in the conditions comply with the city tree code, so I guess we're covered in that sense. Okay, I just wanted to ask why there was a variant, and I didn't realize it was going to be in the footprint.
Mr. Janice, anything else?
No, Chair, thank you.
Or project description, it's, as far as you know, is accurate. Subdivide one parcel into two with 75-foot road frontage on Henlopen Avenue.
That's correct.
Two parcels each of 6,825 square feet. It meets the dimensional requirements of the City Code, Chapter 270 zoning, including, and would be able to contain a 4,000 square foot rectangle within each.
Yes, sir.
Each lot. Creation of these parcels would not create any nonconformities.
Not to my knowledge.
And the applicant submitted an application for a demolition, which he has made reference to.
Correct.
And then there will be compliance with the tree ordinance.
That's in there.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right.
Fees have been paid? Fees paid?
Yes. Sir, have the fees been paid
For the
for this
petition.
petition?
Yes, sir. To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And fees been paid for this one? Okay,
Yes, fees have been paid.
yes, okay.
All right. Anyone else would like to speak to this application? This is a public hearing. Any member of the Planning Commission? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve petition application number 0924-09 for 87 Henlopen Avenue, currently on lots 85, 87, and 89. Those three lots would be partitioned into two lots, with lot number 85 and the easterly portion of lot number 87 becoming parcel A with an area of 6,825 square feet, and the westerly portion of lot 87 and lot number 89 becoming parcel B with an area of 6,825 square feet, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. A, applicant shall comply with the City Tree Code, Chapter 253. B, applicant shall comply with City Code Section 270-21A for natural area.
I second.
Any discussion? Anyone opposed? All those in favor?
So we're not going to do roll call? I guess we don't need to.
Aye.
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 It is unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now,
Appreciate all
There are
this.
some requirements, sir, about the plats and getting the plats signed and getting them recorded and all that among the land records. So please be aware of that and work with Matt Janis on that.
Yes, I've talked with Mr. Janis and Mr. Schenko. One question that I do have regarding that is, in order to go with the revised plats to Sussex County, will we get a notification in the next couple of days of this hearing's approval? Because I believe to walk into Recorder of Deeds and get this done, they need to know that you guys have approved it.
I think we'll have
I don't know if it'll be a couple of days, probably
Or
within
they
a
can,
week.
or
Within a week.
Mr. Willard could contact you, Mr. Larson, and get that taken care of. Okay,
There'll be a written decision
yeah,
forthcoming.
okay. Very
as soon
good.
as it
Thank,
comes to me, I'll sign it. So
okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment the applicant for the care you've taken in destructing the building and making use of that in a responsible manner, because unfortunately on my street, I just watched a 100-year-old building be completely destroyed and munched into oblivion, where you've taken a totally different tact, and that's to be commended. Thank you.
We appreciate that. This is only the second house that I've torn down in Rehoboth in my career.
And if I may, I'd like to also compliment you on the effort you have made to preserve trees. Notwithstanding the dialogue we just had, there are a number of beautiful trees on that property, and I am glad to see that they're all being preserved.
Yeah, if Mr. Martin had divided this into 3 lots, it would have been devastating
Yes.
to Henlopen Avenue, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thank you, sir. Mr. Robertson, the next thing on the agenda is a public hearing on site plan review application number 0523-04, One Rehoboth Avenue Hotel, on the matter of the site plan review request for the property in the C1 Commercial District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you give me 1 second to get myself situated. And could you turn on the screens if you don't mind? No? Okay, well.
That's that.
Yep. That's going to be a short or long, whichever. I don't know.
Speak quickly, please.
That's a great way to start the whole afternoon, Ann. Thanks.
Got to get better.
Wow. All right, I am Vince Robertson, Parkowski, Yerk, and Swayze. I am here on behalf of One Rehoboth Avenue, LLC, and this is regarding the hotel that's on the screens before you. Let me see, so I can jump ahead. You've seen this before. This is the organizational chart of the folks that are involved. And we have several of the folks here today from Grotto Pizzas, Jeff Gosnier. From the Onyx Group, we have Jonathan Silver and Jim Bradley. In the past, you've seen Steve Silver here as well, and also Ron Schaefer. There's me, Nor. We have Wally Funk from Chicago, where it's probably warmer than it is here right now. Pilot Town Engineering, Jim Baker. He's not here, but he testified previously. Pannoni, Greg Rochelle's here. GTA, our geotechnical consultant, Megan McDonough, is not here, but she testified at length previously. And then we have Dave Grayson from GGA here as well. And then also Mr. Berg is here. He's hotel operations, who's testified as well previously. So what I'd like to do, if I could, we've heard this multiple times already, and I don't want to completely beat that dead horse. But there's some things I'd like to get into the record, and I know that you all are going to issue a written decision. I just want to state some of these things for the record in terms of meetings and documents. I don't mind sending this to your attorney for incorporation into the written record. So if you'll bear with me for 1 second, if I could just run through those.
Yeah, please make the record.
So we've had multiple meetings on this. It started back on November 14th of 2022, which was the concept plan review. On April 24th, 2023, we had the Board of Adjustment hearing. Then fast forward to January 12th, 2024, after decisions and back and forth occurred. The preliminary review started. There was a meeting then on June 25th, 2024, August 9th, 2024, after FEMA's amendment in June of 2024. There was a meeting on September 13th of 2024, which was the continuation of preliminary review. The meeting on November 21st of the same year, further continuation. And then today, the public hearing, January 24, 2025. I'd like all those meetings to be incorporated in the record. Preliminary, primarily, I think the most important one was probably the September 13th one, because that's when we had a lot of questions answered about the geotechnical issues, and you all had that geotechnical report from Megan. Document-wise, aside from all those prior meetings and communications, there's some relevant documents. There was a January 3, 2025 plan review report, which is the most recent. I'm kind of working backwards on this one. August 28th, 2024 was that GTA technical data report and project overview. And these aren't anything new, I should point out as well. These are all things you've seen. There's the March 3, 2023 consolidated deed recorded at book 5866, page 323, and the tax and zoning maps and the future land use map, which that's law anyway. There was the October 9, 2024, and December 20, 2024 plan review report. The June 26, 2023 Board of Adjustment written decision. The August 29th, 2024 response to Mr. Mehta's August 20th letter, then that August 20th letter from Mr. Mehta. There's the June 25, 2024 FEMA approval letter and the November 19th, 2024 final approval from FEMA. Recall that moved that line from zones VE and X to AO for the property, and also at the end of Rehoboth Avenue for that matter. There was an August 20, 2024 letter from DENREC confirming that we're good with the DENREC building line. There was the December 18th, 2023 plus exemption that said we didn't have to go through the plus process. An August 20, 2023 letter to Evan Miller, who was the assistant city manager and maybe the acting interim city manager at that time, regarding just project coordination. The very first thing was September 2, 2022 letter to Mr. Bryan seeking concept plan review. And then I would just add the current plans that are embedded in today's agenda. I mean, certainly the other ones are part of the record, but they've evolved based on all our meetings. So the relevant plans really for purposes of this application are the ones that are in today's agenda. And then all the application forms for site plan review, concept plan review, lot consolidation, and even the Board of Adjustment. And then the photographs, which we'll get to in a minute, but particularly the before and after ones. And then the last thing that we talked about, which we're not going to go through today, because I don't think they're technically law, but I think they're relevant, and we spent some time with them early on, was the Rehoboth Beach Architectural Design Manual from November of 2007. You recall at the beginning of this, we talked about how this project was consistent with the goals of that design manual. So I didn't expect you all to take notes on that, but I will provide those separately to Mr. Larson, just so you have those in the record, the listing of those in the
And the
record.
lot consolidation is not being handled today, correct?
Well, that was the understanding that it would be, because we got the application and then paid the,
It was not on our agenda. I didn't know about it. I didn't know that that had happened.
Mr. Janis, can you update us on that, please?
I know that we did receive an application, and we always assumed that it would be part of this discussion. Didn't know that it was ready for the merger, but again, the thinking was that it all could happen together. So really, it's relying on the planning commission, I guess, if they
But we
want.
never got a report specifically on the lot consolidation.
You certainly didn't.
Okay.
No, you did not.
didn't. Okay.
I agree that you did not get
Oh,
a report on it. Certainly, we'll look at the application and move forward with our reporting on it.
That's
But
why
we're
it's
not
on the
ready.
agenda. Right.
That's right. We haven't. We didn't complete that
I
yet.
see. Okay, that's why it's not on the
Okay,
agenda.
so Mr. Robertson, we'll push that to the February meeting and
okay. I would say that the lot consolidation plan was embedded in the agenda, but I would ask that, since this is on for public hearing, I think you can deal with both of these separately. I know in the Bellhaven
Yes,
case.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay, okay.
yeah, this is not the first time we've.
Yeah, no, I know. It's the first time I've heard that it wasn't on today's agenda, so we were expecting to spend about 5 or 10 minutes on that, but, so.
You can
gotta come
save
back.
some time.
There's that. Well, sort of. Now we got to go to February, so it saved 10 minutes and added a month. But I mean, I think we can work through that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was just sort of the underlying principles that drive a site plan review, and those are the items first in the zoning code. We believe, and I think everybody at this stage now agrees, that we comply with the zoning code with regard to the variance granted for the FAR at 2.76, as well as the height and parking and everything else. The general purposes of site plan review are protection of the architectural massing, composition, scale, and character of the neighborhood. We went through that early on, how we've accomplished that, and actually, it shows up on this drawing, and really more on this one, when we talk about the northeast corner of the city of Rehoboth Beach. Right now, it's a hodgepodge of buildings. If you look at what's there now, there's the Dolly's building that was built after the 1962 storm, really rapidly to get up done for that season. There's what everybody kind of calls the Nick's Luncheonette building historically, which is where Zelke's is. Same thing, I think that was thrown together. Behind that's the 100-year-old bowling alley building that was, built whenever. There's the Sirocco Motel to the rear of that that's now closed and virtually condemned. I mean, if this gets approved, that's going to be the first thing that you see come down, so that we can start relocating utilities and get a jump on that, because that also doesn't interfere with the other buildings if we have to be open this summer. There's Grottos, which originally on that corner was a retail store, sort of a beach shop that was owned by the Dentino family. And then in the middle, I'm old enough to remember when that was a miniature golf course that led up the ramp to the Sirocco Motel. And so at some point, that was filled in with buildings of questionable structure and construction materials and whatever, but it's there today. At any rate, this project really coordinates well with the northeast corner of the city of Rehoboth Beach. And as you can see, it's compatible with what's around there. It has a broken up facade. It has the balconies, which actually is an improvement over some of the other more square buildings in that area. And it really anchors the corner well for that project, for that location. And that's the same thing with the second item on that, the compatibility of new construction with the existing scale and character of the nearby properties. Preservation of streetscapes. I would argue that there's not a lot necessarily to preserve. I hearken back to Steve Silver's comment that the Dolly's building lost its hat when the Dolly's sign came down. So now that's just a block, sort of barracks-like building, and then everything else we just described. So this will be an improvement over that for the streetscape. And then protection of the public's health, safety, and general welfare. We've accommodated that. One of the things, too, on the project itself, which really shows up well in this picture, I think back to, we really emphasize this at the Board of Adjustment and to you all, how this is going to be very open down here along the boardwalk. So it has a real pedestrian scale at the boardwalk level. And those are going to be garage doors. So, if you're sort of here on Rehoboth Avenue, you'll frankly be able to see straight through those open garage doors, and there's an openness that goes all the way along that. And I think you all appreciated that. I know the Board of Adjustment specifically appreciated that pedestrian scale and the fact that it'll lead to a little bit of commercial revitalization of that north end of the boardwalk. And then under 236E, there's 21 items that have to be addressed. You'll be glad to know I'm not going to go through all 21 of those items, but I think it's safe to say that we've touched on all of those in the past 5 meetings, and they deal with virtually all parts of the application. The last sort of general comment I wanted to make is something we talked about early on, is the compliance with the comprehensive plan. I will just generally say, without getting into the details on that, going back as far as 2004, there was the encouragement for the redevelopment of properties on Rehoboth Avenue and also Baltimore Avenue. There were some specific goals and strategies that addressed that, and there was the idea to increase commercial viability of Baltimore Avenue. And we have complied with all of those requirements and goals of the comprehensive plan for Rehoboth Beach. Oops. One thing I wanted to talk about too, that we mentioned before, is this also is an improvement over what currently exists and what was built previously. Now, we've shown renderings before with the lifeguard station here. This is the old lifeguard station, but you can really get a feeling for how this design improves light, air, and space on Rehoboth Avenue, but really on that Baltimore Avenue corridor, because you can see after the first floor, the building really steps back quite a bit from Baltimore Avenue. And there was one thing, if I don't screw this up technologically, during one of the city commissioner's reports about the status of the lifeguard station, the gentleman up in the corner, and this is a screenshot of the broadcast of it, and that was an EDIS representative, but he had gone up to what is the sort of the overhang of the lifeguard station, and you can see that Grotto's tower, and then this was a video, so it panned through, and this doesn't show it completely, but you can see that Grotto's tower really impedes vision south down the boardwalk from the lifeguard station. That will be completely eliminated. That's going to be set back somewhere here. So for a health, safety, and welfare sort of point of view, and as well as light and air, it really opens up that end of Rehoboth Avenue. So if I could next bring Wally up here, because the next slides are the architectural slides. So Wally, if you want to introduce yourself again for the record.
Yeah, Wally Funk from Nor Architects. Oh, perfect. I'm going to get Vince to do the introductions every time. I don't know what more I need to say. Just wanted to run through high level. I know we've looked at this before several times. Just need to get one more.
Get it back up.
Oh, yeah, right. Gotcha.
There you go. Whoops, did we lose it?
Yeah, we're back. Perfect.
There we go.
Just to sort of touch on the points that we had talked about in some of the previous meetings, sort of a high level thing. Going back to the elevations, as we've talked before, we've made adjustments along the way. This depicts that now we're all at the required heights all along the parapets for both elevations shown here, and this shows the different areas that are sort of the highlights at the rooftop pinnacles as well. And again, as Vincent said, the facade along the way in all of our discussions has still remained the essence of the design. So we've carried that through even throughout all of this discussion. On the north-south elevations, we've talked before about the garage entrance, which we've made those adjustments along the way too, as far as head heights, access. Again, we've maintained our heights here as far as the zoning ordinance requires. And then as Vincent pointed out on the Rehoboth side of the elevations, keeping that transparency along that area, we feel will be a big complement to the boardwalk as we get this thing constructed. Building sections, again, this is sort of reinforcing the relationships of all the different heights to the underground garage levels and the different variations in the heights that we have there, and how the parking relates to the step backs, or the garage relates to the step backs above. Again, this denoting all the measurements of the height relationships as well. And again, just to a quick overview again on the parking. We've got 62 parking spaces below grade. Again, the access coming off Baltimore Avenue. And ground level, here we are with our juxtaposition of the lifeguard station site plan, and then the drive-in area that starts here and heads down into the garage. And showing again, this would be our planned lobby entrance for the hotel. And again, the retail spaces that all line the boardwalk and then wrap around on the Rehoboth side. And then another thing to point out here would be the alley access off of Rehoboth that goes into the back of the first floor space as well. This is another rendering we had prepared, sort of delineating a little bit of all the relationships as you look down Baltimore Avenue. And again, on the right here, you see the access down into the garage area, and then the screening of the dumpsters and trash area underneath the hotel portion of the building. And then the entrance to the hotel lobby would actually be just down a little bit to the right on that slope, or down the slope. And we had talked about a few different things to address the height variations in the garage. This was one thing we had talked about, I think, in the last meeting, is that obviously we're going to have warning bars at the entrance because we got some variation to heights, and then where the loading also occurs on that ground level. Parking clearance bar would be at 8.2 because that's our ultimate height limitation when we get down to the bottom. However, the loading space has a higher vertical clearance available.
One thing on this, and we talked about it last time, because it's hard to see on this slide, but the Boardwalk Plaza, which is the top one, which is the Pink Hotel, you can't see it on the sign, but the clearance there's 7 feet. And then the one below that, the large vehicle parking was 8.7. And by comparison, and we talked about sort of the standard in the industry, I think, because there's nothing in code last time, but by comparison, our loading zone clearance is 9 foot 8 inches, and just the regular parking garage is 8 foot 2. So, we actually exceed what some of the other hotels are in the. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. And then second floor, we would have our guest rooms lining the perimeter of the boardwalk side, and then also in Baltimore, also view down to the south from the south end as well. And then the amenity spaces for the hotel would be located here. We have a pool and a pool deck on the back side tucked away, and then a small breakfast room devoted for the hotel, food, small food preparation area, and then a fitness area as well. And then, of course, balconies lining the frontage of the building.
There's no anticipated permit of compliance then for this? There's not, because not an alcohol served. Okay.
Yeah. And then the third and the fourth floor are all guest rooms, identical really in terms of the floor plan. But this, again, the orientation here again reflects the step back areas above the first floor that we have, as Vincent pointed out. And again, we'd have the balconies lining both Rehoboth wrapping around, or lining the boardwalk wrapping around Rehoboth, and then over on Baltimore as well, next to where the lifeguard station is. Fourth floor, again, is identical to the third.
Thanks, Wally. So the next slide is the lot consolidation plan, which it sounds like we're going to talk about in February. But one thing I did want to point out, because it was a comment on the site plan review, and actually I might go back, bear with me a second. Oops. I just want to explain one thing. This isn't the exact sheet, but there was a question on one of Matt's comments about data that was shown over here, which was the walkways and the drive aisles and the lifeguard station, about there not being a legend shown on one of our site plans. I just wanted to explain that. That's because that wasn't our site plan. What we did was superimpose the Davis Boat and Friedel site plan, just for informational sake, just that section of it onto our plan to show how the two interacted. So that wasn't our legend or our data. I didn't want you to think that we left something off our plans. We just showed a little excerpt of that Davis, Bowden, and Friedel plan. So Wally went over that. So that's the extent of our presentation, which sounds somewhat anticlimactic, but as you know, we've had some long, very fruitful discussions, I would say, up to this point, along with what we thought would be a relatively simple FEMA map amendment that FEMA decided to do more of an amendment than we asked for, which added time. So for that reason, we really don't have that much to add. We do think it's a good project for Rehoboth. It's really the iconic corner, one of the iconic corners of Rehoboth Beach. And right now, the buildings there are just a hodgepodge and sort of they're past their productive life. And we need to revitalize not just that corner, but I think everybody would agree to some extent the north end of the boardwalk, get people up there and wanting to go up there, with the pedestrian-friendly facade and grottos being an anchor on the Rehoboth Avenue side, which I think is also a good thing because they're an iconic business in Rehoboth like Dolly's was, so that's important. The plan is to have Zelke's back where they are, to have an arcade there like they've been forever. So I think this whole thing will be an amenity to Rehoboth Beach. It's going to be a big improvement, and it'll be another good anchor for the city for another 100 years or more. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions that you all may have for us.
Any members of the Planning Commission?
Well, do we need to hear from?
Yeah, I'll go to him.
Okay.
Just at this point.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I commend you because I think it's a nice project and it's needed, the revitalization. The one thing that bothers me, and maybe you can help me, is the ramp down.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go to that slide, either on the overlay or on your site plan, and sort of help me understand.
Well, let me ask, what just this, because there's two different visions. I don't know if are you worried about at the street or are you worried about internal on the building?
I'm worried about the street.
Okay.
Because, it seems like your angle of your cars, before they hit the terminus of the street, they're running into your lot line. And also,
Is the question that they would cross our lot line on the sidewalk, cut across to get?
yeah, so where's your apron? I presume your apron doesn't go past your lot line.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask Wally to come back up here too.
Yeah,
just
and
so-
then sort of if you, what, I'm on the one that is the overlay, which has, some hash marks I don't understand.
Is it this?
I think it
this-
is.
This image, yeah.
Well, it's not
Whoops.
that one. The site plan overlay that is part of the agenda.
Oh, hold on, I think I can find it. We had some at the end, just not knowing if you all would have questions. Is it?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Mine has more color on it.
Yeah, oops.
Lifeguard.
Yeah, that's the whole lifeguard building with ours, but.
Okay, well, I'm looking at a different picture, and I don't know if I'm just zoomed out, but here.
At the beach, that's the beach patrol.
This is called the overlay. I presume you provided it.
Yeah, and
You
it's-
provided the
yeah, it's-
overlay?
I think it's that.
Okay.
But it's
Yeah.
not that part, it's the part further down where the colors are.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there another page, or are you not scrolled down? It looks like I'm seeing something below yours.
Yeah, this, right?
Yes. Or you can put that under the thing and Ann can, yeah.
This is
Thank
what
you.
we had at one point, and I think we just tried to consolidate it.
Okay, so on this, when you get there. So you see how your cars come out? And the car coming in appears to at least the angle of your thing, you're hitting your lot line, and so that car's got to kind of come in and straighten out because your apron's going to be there. Am I making sense? Do you see how your lines are running parallel, car coming in, car coming out? and the one on the left side hits Lot 2 before it hits the street?
Well,
Okay, so practically speaking, this car is not just going to come in and go that way. If you extended your line out into the street, you'd cross into somebody else's lot, if that makes sense.
It does, but, hold on, let me just get this. Yeah.
And while you're answering that, so what's the gray area, the darker gray area with the diagonal lines?
So the diagonal, recall, let me just get to it.
Sorry, I mean,
That's all right.
yeah. So right above that, there's that diagonal. No, you were on the right
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
So the diagonal lines that were shown on the one that Ann had on the screen, which is the one over here on the table,
Yeah.
that's the striping that Davis and Bone and Friedel put for their lifeguard station plans, because as you can see on this photograph, and actually there's even a better one. This one, you can see that this is all access right here. So the Admiral Baltimore's right next to us. Their access point's right here. Ours is here.
We're not, do you have your cursor on that? Because
I'm sorry. I thought, Ann, can we switch it back to our PowerPoint? I didn't. I was looking at our screen. Yeah, that's the one that's on the
I
screen.
think this one this one sort of shows a little, at least the relationship. So I think, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, as I recall, this striping is basically like a no parking area as part of the lifeguard station plans. The gray, I think, is just hatching for new pavement after they have to take the old out. Is that
And
basically
what are
that is?
those little, I think Mike Strange asked that
So,
last
so
time.
the.
What is that?
Yeah, and as, I will admit, that's confusing. So, whoops, if you look at this area is actually flat, relatively. And then you get to, there's a little bit of grading just for drainage, that's all there is. So that's basically flat as you enter our garage. Then this is also a flat sidewalk area. Then as you get to here, this is actually a ramp at an ADA accessible ramp grade, which is not radical. Another flat landing here at the 113.6 notation. And then again, ramping down, another landing here, and then ramping down to get to the boardwalk. So essentially, at our entrance, everything is relatively flat.
Okay.
And our entry is actually, it's a little bit more, I mean, we're going to make it as wide as we can, but we're obviously limited by what's going in with the lifeguard station. But it's actually wider than is required as well. And then the other thing to remember is, even though we show that, those are basically, at the entrance, it's basically a flat area. It's pretty generous as far as getting in. So the turning is not, it's not a radical, maneuvering to get into the garage. But this plan is a little deceptive because that vertical whatever shows something that isn't really apparent as you look at it. But at our area, the grading is essentially flat at our entrance.
Yeah, we went through that last time, and I don't know if Greg wants to explain it, but so the part up top, this isn't our plan. This is Davis, Bone and Friedel's, right? And candidly, when you look at that, to me, it looks like there's steps there, and that's not. And the difference is, and Greg explained this before, it's a matter of like tenths of inches on this gradient, and I think, it's just a transition. It's not steps, and it's not, if you're walking on it, I don't even think you would know that there's actually a little bit of down right there, and certainly not in a vehicle.
And then with regard to, you were addressing the width and how it's larger, but immediately upon entering your garage, I have to go over to what I'm looking at is to the right side, to the ocean side. Both cars have to get through there, and it quickly becomes less wide. The part that, your opening is this, but your path for the thing gets narrow quick.
Well, actually, it's the same width. It
Okay.
continues the same width all the way down. It's 24, I think we said 24.6, but we're going to try to get closer to 25. But the width is the required width all the way down the ramp.
But you have this, whatever it is over there on the left, this trash thing. What is it?
Correct.
Trash.
And that doesn't cut into the 24-foot width. It's still that same width all the way down.
Including the trash.
Correct.
Without the trash, it's less.
No, not including the trash. I'm saying
Okay.
exclusive of the trash
Got it.
area.
Okay.
We have the 24-foot minimum. Like I said, I think we can get, 24 foot, am I going too far? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so essentially that the width of the drive aisle is larger than is required width-wise all the way down consistently. And, you know, we've smoothed it out, and it's a fairly, I mean, I don't think it's a radical turning maneuver whatsoever. And you know, again, I think the key here is it's really like, you know, as I'm looking at this plan, even that one area really looks like steps, but it's all, you know, at grade there. So it's actually a fairly easy maneuver.
Do you have, well, never mind. I was going to ask you, do we know how emergency vehicles leave the lifeguard station? But we don't necessarily, well, we might have an emergency vehicle down south or up north. It won't necessarily, they won't evacuate necessarily through. Okay.
Right. And I think the lifeguard station's set up too, so that they're gonna have vehicles going out the front and
Right.
down the beach, so it would be more wherever the emergency is, I think, which is
Right.
to your point. They definitely do. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Strange.
Claude, let me go ahead.
Sort of related.
Go ahead.
Well, I was related to that as well, so either one. I think that's, looking at that depiction and accepting the fact of what the city has done, which is not your obligation. Unfortunately, what the city has done, the way in which the radius of the turn and everything doesn't meet any AASHTO standard whatsoever. That's not your problem. You designed it appropriately. The city did not, and it was brought up a year and a half ago to their attention. And unfortunately, at the meeting where this was voted on, I had a heart attack and I couldn't be there to object to it. Not to this, but to what the city did. And the city hasn't changed it. There is going to be problems related to the entrance that is not caused by you. It's caused by the city. And unfortunately, you're going to be the benefactors of that, which is going to result in some problems. However, the one thing that also occurs, and I asked that it be identified at this meeting, and I don't know if the city did it, and I asked for both parties to identify it, is in the area that is the sidewalk not in front of the access to the building, there are slopes involved. And in the original depictions, in all the drawings that the city presented and that the engineers presented, it showed railings on both sides because that's what was required to meet ADA requirements. To your knowledge, if in fact those railings are in fact required by the city, not by you, do those railings impact the entrances that you're showing or the windows on the building? Which I couldn't tell from the drawings if they opened or closed or whatever.
So it doesn't impact the entrance to our building. So we were very careful we situate our lobby entrance right at the landing area. So it doesn't impact us at all. To your point, I've seen the railings on the lifeguard station drawings. I haven't seen the full set of drawings, so I couldn't speak to that. But I did see them on there at some point. It doesn't show up on the stuff that we have here, I don't think. But I did see a reference to it on some of their drawings at some point.
Right, and what you're showing on the remainder of the main core part of the building, those are just windows and not accessible ways in any fashion?
Correct,
Oh,
yes. Because it's exactly to your point, other than perhaps at the landing down at the bottom. But the problem is, because the grade change all the way along there, that lobby's got to be higher anyway.
Right.
So everything at that corner, we want to enter off the boardwalk. That's really our only opportunity, and it makes sense. It doesn't hurt anything as far as functionality goes.
The other question I have is one that is just a very general question because you got all your approvals from FEMA with regard to the reclassifications. One of the aspects of that is it requires that you have 1 foot of freeboard, which is greater than the designation that is applied. Do you have that? And so it's maybe a simple yes or no, which is, I think, what you're saying. Yeah.
So you can introduce yourself, Greg.
Greg Rischel, Pannoni Associates. Yes. The 1 foot of freeboard is, the flood elevation is designated zone A02, so it's potentially up to 2 feet of flood elevation plus the extra foot. So what it means is the building has to be protected up elevation from ground elevation 3 feet up, so 2 plus 1. So the barriers that have to go in front of the doors have to be 3 feet high. The waterproofing on the facade of the building that'll be under the siding, all that has to be up 3 feet.
Right. Now, the only follow-up question to that is, and this is something which I do not know the answer to, I'm not an expert in this area at all, is that some of the things when you have freeboard requires not to have human intervention. It has to exist in and of itself. does that apply in this situation? Because you just described it as the human intervention part.
For the doors, right, because they're door openings, right? So, you know, the rest of the building, it's a passive system. It's waterproofing. Wally can talk more about that. The barriers on the fronts of the doors, and, you know, Jeff Gosner's here, he can talk about, he's just put this on his shop in Dewey. Because those are openings where people are coming and going, you know, storm's coming, we know it's coming, you get, you know, a warning, you know, a few days in advance, we know there's a hurricane coming up the coast. They get the barriers out from the storage area and they slide in front of the doors and the windows.
Right.
Anything that's open, and these are gonna have these garage doors too, right, that go up and down, so that, but it's, there's, like, you can't have an active system in front of, like, normal doors that people are coming and going out of.
No, I just wanted to validate that.
Yeah.
You answered the question.
No,
That's
it's a good
great.
question.
The other thing is, I would just make an observation, and I think it's a credit to all of you on this project, which is, I think, the way it should work, is that there has been a give and take on issues completely. Some things we identified which you disagreed with, others we identified you agreed with, and made modifications that meet the code, and in many cases exceeded the code, which is to the benefit ultimately to everyone. To do that. And so I just wanted to congratulate all of you on that process. And this is, I think, an excellent example of how it should work. And I thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Mr. Ellison.
First of all, as one of the principal authors of the architectural,
You said that at the very first meeting.
I've heard this before, but I appreciate any mention of it.
I know.
I'm still looking at the connection between the hotel and the ramp down. That is a part of the drawings that you provided. However, you haven't provided a section. All we have it is in plan.
Where the hotel entrance is?
Yes.
So.
And I understand that the hotel entrance is at the wide, flat area in that ramp.
Correct.
And I understand that the, shall we say, the area where you're going to wheel out the trash is at that second, or really the third of the flat areas.
Right.
Narrow. By my looking at my calculating that last ramp, it is definitely a ramp. It occupies. There's about a 14-inch at least difference in the elevation between the exit driveway and where you're going to take the trash out.
Between the exit driveway.
Call it the third.
You mean
ramp.
where the driveway comes out right here?
It's where the trash entrance is and where
For this
yes,
area right
and
there.
then on out. There's a narrow, flat area there.
Right. Well, so one of the things, it is complicated here because we've got several different elevations, basically. But essentially, the retail area would be, you know, we'll call it flush with the boardwalk, obviously, because that's where our entrance comes in. This lobby area is going to be up a certain distance to meet that grade here, but it doesn't interact directly with that, so it's going to be higher.
Right.
So then when we get to this area, it doesn't access anything directly into here, or so what it will have to be at an elevation that kind of matches up with this, although we'll probably also have some areas that might, you know, it might have to slope down a little bit. But we're not going to keep it, you know, it's not going to be a radical change where we have steps down.
No, I understand that. I was just, I wanted to simply, I have been assuming that the trash area will be at a different and a higher elevation than the first floor.
Correct, yes. And then really, if you see this wall right here,
Right.
I'll call it a wall, it's really more of a transition. It enables us to make that transition from the grades is really what happens. So as this thing ramps down, this is going to stay at an elevation so you can access it. And, you know, you would access out here, and then this would have to be at a different elevation too, obviously, because this is all ramping down into the garage.
Right. Well, can you just tell us how you get from the doorway out of the first floor at the end of the loading dock? You're still going to bring trash out there
Yeah,
and
right out there,
somehow
right.
get it down to the
Correct.
storage area.
Yeah, and this will be
Give us a path on that.
This will be more or less flush from here out to here. you know, there'll start to be a little bit of a ramp down here, obviously, but it'll be, you know, not much. But that'll be more of a curb. But essentially, inside here, then you'll walk out and you'll be able to get straight out into the garbage area without going up and down in a radical slope.
So that also goes across in and outgoing cars.
And that's one of the reasons it's a little bit longer, is because we can't, you know, the grades are complicated with the interiors. But it's actually, in terms of the distance for, you know, garbage removal, it's actually kind of better than a lot of hotel uses that we see, because they, you know, they park their dumpsters so far away. And here we're within the building, so it's not a bad distance in terms of walking.
Well, the trucks that they take the trash to, though, are still right out in the middle of the street.
Yeah, it's loading through here, correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
right, as we discussed before.
Any other questions?
Well, I have one quick question. I have more questions for Master Report, but I have one quick question here, and that is, I know that you're the woman who's a structural engineer is not here today, but to remind me, are there reports on file about the underpinnings for adjacent properties when you're building the underground parking?
Yes, that's the August 28th, 2024 GTA Geotechnical Data Report and Project Review. So she talked about the test borings that they've done and the one test boring that's remained to test well, and also the fact that they used information that Hines did for the lifeguard station to get information about what was underneath there, to sort of start thinking about strategies for, and I don't want to sound like an engineer, but to make sure there's no issues with underpinning. We're not going to be going underneath other people's property, I want to say that. But as she says in a report, you know, there's going to have to be further exploration based on the final construction plans and the loads of those plans. And it's a very thorough report, and that is in the record.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Mr. Janis. Sir. I have in front of me your January 3, 2025 report. Do you have any issues with what you opined on in that document?
And I have a question about the dates, if maybe I should ask that first, make sure I'm looking at the right one. Your letter talks about plans submitted on December 13th with a revision date of 11/24. But the plans we have here are dated November 19. Are they one and the same?
They are.
Okay, so because I'm referring to them in the motion as November 19, because that's what the plans themselves are dated.
Correct.
Is that right? Also, we've seen so many, and I love the back and forth on these reports, by the way, and having them all together in one report. I think that's great. What I'm looking at has blue text and red text in addition to the black and white text. Is that at all? There's no third level of reply, right? It's only the blue text and the red text.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'll just add to that, because we've done these with green text, and I think
yeah.
we started with that. And this one, since everything seemed to be resolved, there just wasn't the need to.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we had the latest
one.
one, because there've been a bunch of them floating around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Janis, nothing further for us to be concerned about at this point?
I don't believe so, Chair.
Okay.
All right.
I have probably a lot of questions that might be for Matt, just a confirming thing. Should we do those now?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Okay. And just looking at the motions, we talked about lot consolidation amendments. Is it correct that there will be no drop-off zone on city property? I thought I saw something about that here, but that none was planned.
To my knowledge, no drop-off will occur on city property and will all be hotel located.
Okay, true?
True. yes.
Okay. And then, the one thing I didn't notice on the size of the parking spaces. I don't, sometimes when we see plans, I know they're not every parking space is labeled 9 by 18, but on some of the plans we see, a few of them are, just to show that that's the size of them. And I don't recall seeing that on this. Have you measured these, or confirmed the measurements of the size of the parking space?
Yes, we have.
And they are 9 by 18, not counting any posts in them?
Yes. Excuse me. So as with all these hotel submissions, obviously there's some concern as the structure builds
Right.
For these parking spaces. That's where building and licensing comes into play, and we have to when excuse me, if we get to a permit phase for this project, we would confirm that all parking spaces are the measurable 9 by 18 spaces, and no interruption from the columns would occur. If
in-
that did so,
Yeah.
it would mean possibly a redesign of the garage area.
Okay.
And you
But
would
for
not issue
now-
a building permit if they were in violation of that.
That's correct, Chairman.
And the measurements you have now, or the plans you have now, show them to be code
They
compliant?
do.
Okay, that's fine. I think that was, and I got an email today from Miriam about the emergency vehicle.
Access.
The fact that we would, that we would have further
Cliffhanger.
reports on that during the building process, right? Sorry. Yeah,
Lot of-
sorry.
Lot of
Lot
head
of moving
shaking.
parts. I should go
Answer
back
to
to
that,
that.
her question.
Yeah.
So the question, there was some questions regarding emergency vehicle access along Rehoboth Avenue. And there was lots of discussion regarding that, but the ultimate outcome is, and the last question from Susan, set of questions from Susan, Vice Chair Susan Gay, was that asking whether whether any reports from the police department or local fire company as part of the departmental reports. Let me take a step back. So the first answer to the first set of questions was that the access would be reviewed by the fire marshal, and that occurs at final plan and, at construction plans. And certainly if there's any requirements that these plans, and we also talked with Vince about this, the plans would have to meet the state fire marshal code. So they would have to meet that code. So then Susan had some other questions as to any reports from the police department, the local fire company, as part of the departmental reports that were obtained early in the project. And so we went back and checked, and Chief Banks indicated he had no concerns regarding this project, and the fire chief did not respond with any comments. And we also circled back with Vince on this. And but certainly if you want to have that be
Yeah, I
a
think we
condition,
have something in here
certainly
for that.
to,
Right, we have that.
to have a circle back with, because we did have some initial discussions peripherally with Chief Banks on a related issue when he was talking about the issue of pedestrian safety on Rehoboth Avenue. So he is aware of the issue.
And I'm thinking we had discussion about management of vehicle access to the unloading berth and the trash room.
Yeah, no, we did. We spent some time about that, how that'd be managed through the reservation system, and then, when folks do electronic check-ins and signage, so all that will be appropriately managed.
Well, in addition to that, was there discussion of a master loading dock management and schedule arrangement, all that? Was there talk about that?
No, there wasn't. There was, I think, in the Bellhaven.
Yeah,
There
okay.
was not in ours, because we didn't really see that as an issue, because, I mean, the biggest tenant's Grotto's, which is the owner of the property, so I just don't really see there being any sort of conflict with that.
So you don't see any conflict between, cars arriving and as Earl just said, conflict between the loading berth, the trash room, cars coming and going? Any reason to manage
Operationally,
that?
we don't. And because, as Mr. Gosnell testified before, they're doing the trash now that they would have from that restaurant out that same side, and it's just based on that, they know they don't anticipate it being a problem, so.
You don't have a hotel there.
Yeah, and I would, Mr. Gosnell just reminded me that the way Grotto's has it set up, because they're on such a scale, that they're able to make sure their deliveries are overnight also, so, yeah, that's a good thing. The one thing I do want to add, and just so you all understand that we recognize this, and I think you all do, but also maybe the public, this is hopefully the last step in the first process, but the first step in the next process, which is lengthy. So we've got to still go through, obviously, Matt's office, all those reviews, state fire marshal, everybody else. It's sort of a car wash of different people that are going to get a chance to look at this. So we fully understand that and know that. And if we don't get all that accomplished favorably, Mr. Janis is not going to issue us a building permit. So.
And Mr. Robertson, just for the record, there are no open issues concerning the geotechnical studies of this property?
There are none, no.
And same for floodplain, since you've been through the Lomar.
That's true, there are no issues.
And you have a structural engineering report.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're all on staff, and you have that information too, or all part of the client design team, and you have that information.
Okay, well, you still have part of my exhibit there. Can I have it back?
Oh.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Janis, you're happy.
Currently. Wait until the construction documents come in.
Yes. Is there anyone from the public here? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this application? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name, give us your address.
Ernie Felici, Beacon Hospitality, ownership of the Admiral to Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
We, not your fault, but we still have not seen the geotech reports and aren't convinced that some sort of underpinning may be necessary. We would like to review those reports. I just sent you an email to send them to me, in order just to make sure that everything's okay. I mean, I was told what the possible floodplain was on the opposite side of the Admiral, and just want to confirm the other side and have someone from our side review that. Don't want to hold anything up, but I just want to make sure that we're good.
Mr. Robertson, will your team?
Absolutely, I mean, it's embedded in the record, but if you've sent me an email, I'll send you.
I did. It's already sent.
I'll send that, and I would say, you know, again, this is going to be part of an ongoing, that report is just the preliminary investigation, so there's obviously going to be further studies done just to make sure that nothing happens.
And I have a request from Mr. Moore that if we can meet with somebody from the town just to go over this with somebody.
All right. Anything else, sir?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Not in here currently.
Your geotechnical report is part of the record.
It is, yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else? I'll close the public hearing portion of this meeting. Any other discussion about the Planning Commission? Is there a motion?
Are we ready? You'll have to bear with me while I read a lot of
I don't know
things.
if I'm ready or not. It depends on what your motion is.
It's just a lot of words. It's always just a lot of words. Okay. I move to approve site plan application number 053-04 of One Rehoboth Avenue LLC, the applicant, regarding a proposed project to be located in the C1 Commercial District at One Rehoboth Avenue. That's tax map parcel number 334-14.14-57.00, lots number 21 and 22. Tax parcel number 334-14.18-1400, lot numbers 19 and 20, and lot numbers 1 and 3. Tax map parcel 334-14.18-1900, a portion of lot number 19, block of Surf Avenue. Specifically as set forth as amended and as submitted to the city in plans labeled mixed-use development dated November 19th, 2024, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. A, additional approvals under federal law. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed project, or if not possible prior to the issuance of a building permit, as soon thereafter as is reasonably practicable, applicant shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the projects required by applicable federal laws and regulations, including but not limited to any federal or international building laws, all applicable federal ADA requirements, any applicable federal stormwater runoff or point source discharge laws, any applicable FEMA laws or regulations regarding design standards such as withstanding wind, any encroachment of the applicable building line, and a sufficient number of emergency exits for the underground parking garage. B, additional approvals under state law. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed project, or if not possible, as soon thereafter as reasonably practicable, applicants shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by applicable state of Delaware laws, including but not limited to applicable state building laws and regulations, any applicable state stormwater runoff or point source discharge laws, any DNREC approval required for any underpinning activity, Any additional state fire marshal approvals or conditions regarding the maximum safe number of inhabitants per proposed hotel room, sufficient number of emergency exits for the underground parking garage, any DELDOT approval regarding the project's impact on vehicular or pedestrian traffic, any preliminary land use service review and approval by the Office of State Planning Coordination, and any access or easement agreements with neighboring properties or the city that may be required in connection with the designing, surveying, constructing, stabilizing, maintaining, repairing, modifying, or using the proposed structure. C, additional approvals under county law. Prior to the issuance of any building permit, or if not possible, as soon thereafter as is reasonably practicable, applicants shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by applicable Sussex County laws and regulations, including but not limited to approval of the Sussex County Conservation District regarding stormwater management. D, additional approvals under city law. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, or if not possible, as soon thereafter as reasonably practical, applicants shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by applicable City of Rehoboth Beach laws and regulations, including but not limited to City Code Chapter 102, Building Construction, City Code Chapter 159, Flood Damage Reduction, City Code Chapter 215, Restaurants, if applicable, City Code Chapter 220, Sewer and Water, City Code Chapter 206, Pools, City Code Chapter 253, Trees, City Code Chapter 270, Article 7, Signs, City Code Chapter 232, Streets and Sidewalks, specifically Sections 232, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 56, 57, 58, and 59, and the maximum safe number of inhabitants per proposed hotel room, and 10, any access or easement agreements with neighboring properties or the city that may be required. E, lot consolidation. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed project, applicants shall submit an appropriate application and obtain approval from the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission to consolidate lots as may be necessary pursuant to City Code Chapter 236. F, amendments to site plans. Any amendment to the proposed site plan, including modifications to the drawing, shall be submitted to the Planning Commission at the same time they are submitted to city officials for review and are expressly subject to any additional approvals that may be required pursuant to City Code Section 236-33. G, drop-off zone. There will be no drop-off zone on city property associated with this project. H, signage. Install signage for the parking garage, entrance and exit, loading dock, and trash pickup areas, as well as ramps to underground parking, height limitations, and clearance, and locations for handicap parking and accessibility. All signs shall conform to city code. I, access to proposed project by fire and other emergency vehicles. City Code Section 236-30E5 requires the Planning Commission as part of site plan review to consider specific factors, including access to the proposed project by fire equipment and other emergency vehicles. The eastern end of Rehoboth Avenue, which is the southern boundary of the proposed project, has been converted into a pedestrian plaza that is immediately adjacent to the project. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed project, the applicant shall obtain approvals from the Office of the State Fire Marshal, the Rehoboth Beach Police Department, and the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Department, confirming that the proposed project will be fully accessible by fire and other emergency vehicles. And lastly, Jay, retain pedestrian-friendly facade facing the boardwalk as shown on the plans dated November 19th, 2024, and noted in the Board of Adjustment decision dated June 26, 2023 for case number 0822-10.
All right, you've heard a motion for approval. Is there a second? Second. Do it.
Can I ask a question or propose amendment? With regard to the what was in the draft section I, which dealt with the motor vehicle entrance, with regard to the trash and dumpsters, what I understood was that you said it was going to be handled by Grottos, and I don't have any question about how you plan to handle it, but as I read this draft, it's not inconsistent with what you are doing. So I'm yeah, my concern is simply sort of for the record to have that issue included in the conditions of approval.
Well, except that this was about having a plan, and they're not going to have a master plan. So, you know, I think there are parts of this, making sure that delivery and/or waste management will not protrude onto the sidewalk, will not park on Baltimore Avenue or adjacent streets while waiting for access, will not negatively impact pedestrian safety or vehicular traffic. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yes, that is. That's exactly
And is
right.
that, and they've talked about that, I guess.
That's right. And so I think that should be an acceptable amendment, because I'm not offering anything that is contrary to what you said, is my understanding.
Yeah, do we want to add that as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, tell us if you would, Nan,
How you want me-
how you would like to see that read.
Okay. As a condition of this approval, the motor vehicle entrance to the proposed loading, unloading berth, and trash room area shall be managed in such a way so as to ensure that delivery and/or waste management vehicles, 1, will not protrude onto the sidewalk, 2, will not park on Baltimore, I think, Avenue,
Or Rehoboth Avenue?
or adjacent streets while waiting for access to the loading, unloading berth, and 3, otherwise will not negatively impact pedestrian safety or vehicular traffic or parking on Baltimore and Rehoboth Avenues.
And you're offering that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Is there
I
any
second.
Okay.
second for that? All those in favor of the amendment?
Well, okay. Of the amendment?
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
The whole,
aye.
the whole amended,
No, just her amendment.
Yeah, just her amendment.
aye.
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 Okay, so then-
All right,
Aye.
the proposed amendment is adopted.
Okay, do we want to have a roll call vote or more discussion?
Well, is there any other discussion here today? We've heard those who support. Is there anyone who objects?
We do need a roll call vote.
I have no objection, but I wonder if I might make a comment or two prior to moving into a vote.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're approaching, if my math is correct, the 63rd anniversary of the destruction of those properties with the March storm of 1962. And there is a lot of, kind of chatter on Facebook and next door. Isn't it a shame that those of us who have been, here for years recognize and see changing? But what I think the community needs to be reminded of is in April of 1962, that was sand that had all been knocked clean by the impact of the 62 storm. I'm old enough to remember the impact of those storms on the Jersey Shore, Ocean City, New Jersey, block after block after block. Buildings that had been standing like that were folded over like so many houses of cards, and I will never forget those images. Families who depended on those neighborhoods and those buildings for income did the best they could, probably without much, if any, insurance or federal support to rebuild. And so they built what they could build in order to get their businesses back up and operating and move forward. So it's time. It's been 63 years since that destruction. It's been 63 years since families and businesses did what they had to do in order to be able to move forward. And I look forward to voting on the project. Thank you.
Anyone else? No objections? All right, roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you get a second?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Just checking.
Stay on Facebook.
I think I had a second and a
yeah.
third.
That's right.
They like this project.
Okay, I'll start with myself since I have the mic, Commissioner Dewey. I'm voting in favor of this project because, in my view, it comports with the CDC, particularly revitalizing the boardwalk and Baltimore Avenue. I find that the massing of the project is compatible with the scale of the other commercial applications in that neighborhood. I think the architecture proposed is appropriate to the location and the function of the building. And I think also that the developer has taken great care to mitigate as best as possible impacts that have been caused by the city construction of the new lifeguard station. So those are my reasons for supporting this application.
All right.
Moving on. Commissioner Hunter.
I vote yes. I also want to commend the applicant for the design in terms of scale and density and architectural harmony with the remainder of with the buildings that we would like to encourage in that area. And I have, the only hesitancy I have is not with this applicant, but with the consequences of the construction with regard to the beach patrol. But as I said, not your responsibility. And in general, I think this is an excellent proposal and I support it.
Commissioner Strange?
I agree with my fellow commissioners' observations. I also congratulate the applicant on such a cooperative atmosphere that has been developed, and I think that's extremely important for the public to see and to know. That doesn't mean we agree on everything, but we work to a solution which is beneficial to the community and to the developers and the owners of the property. I therefore vote wholeheartedly yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Echoing comments of my fellow commissioners, I think you've done a terrific job. I think it fits within the goals of the CDP. I love the light and the garage things that are going up. And I too have concerns about, congestion and parking and how that's all going to work. But I don't think it's a problem of your own making. So I vote yes.
Commissioner Davis is unable to be with us today. Commissioner Ellison?
Yes, I support the resolution and this project, definitely because of the architecture, the emphasis on the commercial on the first story, particularly along the boardwalk, the setbacks, which help diminish the scale and massing of the project, the design of the facade, all of those things that are related to architecture, and all of the other things that my fellow commissioners have stated, with one addition, and that is that I believe that we will probably end up with two hotels of approximately the same massing on either of the most important two corners in Rehoboth Beach, and I think that actually is a positive, that there is a balance there. Thank you.
Commissioner Stockdale?
I, too, vote in favor of the motion. I echo and agree with all the comments of my fellow commissioners. I think this is a great project. I want to just repeat my thanks to you for working with us in such a cooperative fashion. I really think this is a model of how the process should work. We had questions, you answered them. We had concerns, you listened to us, and you worked with us. And I thank you for that.
Commissioner Gay?
I enthusiastically vote in favor of this project, and for all the reasons my fellow commissioners have stated, and glad I don't have to talk anymore.
Commissioner Bryan?
I vote yes as well. And again, I'd like to emphasize what Commissioner Stockdale has said, that the cooperativeness and the way in which the process worked. And this process does work, but it takes two sides. And you folks have done a great job. And I'm pleased, this is the only time I will say this, but you were well represented.
And did we get that on tape? Yeah, all right, good. I may pull that out a time or two.
Don't raise your fees.
Thank you.
All right, we will issue a notice of decision, get it to you as soon as I can. Our counsel is working on drafting that, and
And I
then
will
we'll see you
supply.
again, and you're going to supply
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
requested information, and then we will see you again in February for the lot
That's
petition, consolidation, actually.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a long process, but I think a good one. You know, and certainly FEMA put a
so
kink in
blame
thing.
FEMA for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not blame, and I understand that because they wanted to make it uniform across the front of Rehoboth Avenue since they'd already had the map amendment on the other side. But anyhow, I appreciate it. I think this will really, like I say, be an amenity to Rehoboth. So thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a 5-minute
5-minute
recess.
break, okay.
It's a little warm.
Yeah, it's just fine.
Sorry. Sorry, Ms. Wilma. Yeah, take it up with her. Yeah. Are we ready? All right, let's continue this meeting. Mr. Roberts, welcome.
As Ms. Gay stole my line yesterday, I'm still Vince Robertson, and I'm still with Parkowski, Girk, and Swayze. So I am here on behalf of Rehoboth Hotel, LLC. This is the start of the preliminary review, but I just want to explain what our goal is, and I've talked to Ms. Gay and Mr. Bryan and some others. So there was a preliminary plan review that was received or dated December 31st, just because that's the end of the year. I'm not sure where everybody received that. There was a revised preliminary plan review dated January 17th of this year that was received on January 21st, I think, by the commission and us all at the same time. And then we did a fairly quick turnaround on that and got it to the city on the 22nd with, like we talked about before, with our comments embedded in that. I understand that you all might not have seen that or received it until yesterday. And for that reason, we understand that, and there's been a lot going on certainly on your plate as well, but that you might not have had a chance to digest all that information. Plus having 4 items on the agenda, what we wanted to do was just give a high-level overview today and then allow you all to come back to us in the form of preferably a written sort of list from your attorney like Mr. Mehta had done actually on the last hearing, so that when we come back in February, we can all have a more meaningful presentation and conversation about what we think's relevant and what you think's relevant. But so with that, what I'd like to do is sort of go through the presentation.
Now, this is preliminary review of
sure.
site plan review application number 024-06 Coast Hotel, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And I am here today just for introductions with Will Harvey, who is the owner representative, Mike Nash, who works with the owner and sort of does the construction administration, Craig Johnson, who's with North Star, the general contractor for the project, and then Larry Rosensweet with Alliance Architects, the architect of record for the project. And they've all been involved in the project from day one. Everybody but Mr. Rosensweet was here for the Board of Adjustment application, because that dealt with different issues. So they're very familiar with the project. Sort of just at its most simplest sense, what we're asking for is 10 additional hotel rooms. This sort of follows, as you all remember, this was the Sandcastle Hotel. And I don't know, it was Tijuana Taxi, and it was Conch Island, there was a liquor store, there's been a whole bunch of different things on the first floor, and it was in not great shape, I'll just leave it at that. And so my folks bought the Sandcastle, put a lot of money into, a lot of time and energy designing a good project and one that is a good anchor to this block of Rehoboth Avenue next to the fire station. I assume you all know where it is on 2nd Street and Rehoboth Avenue next to the fire station. And the facade's much better, much more in keeping, again, with the architectural design guidelines for the city of Rehoboth Beach that Mr. Ellison helped author. I had to make sure I mentioned that again. But anyhow, it's more of an improvement. And as you can see, the facade's broken up, to look like there's sort of different buildings, et cetera. So just a brief overview. We were granted a variance on June 10th of this year for a FAR of 2.7119, which represents a square footage increase of 7,608 square feet. And plans confirming that were supplied to Mr. Janis's office, and they were what generated the reviews. And that's actually what the next slide states. And this, again, references the existing data calculations are provided for the FAR, non-FAR, and overall gross square footage, as well as the new proposed FAR, non-FAR, and overall gross square footage. And then the plans included, certified by the engineer, or excuse me, by the architect, the parking levels in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor, as well as the elevations. What I thought I would do, because we have the plans next, but I think this makes a whole lot more sense to go to the existing elevation and then flip to the next one, which is the proposed. So if you're driving down Rehoboth Avenue or 2nd Street, This is what you see today. This isn't a photograph, it's a rendering, but it's exactly the same, with Sirocco on the first floor and the outdoor seating, the view down 2nd Street, and the view down Rehoboth Avenue with the main entrance to the hotel. Let's see, there we go, centrally located right in here. So that's the view, and of course the pool is up here, and that was all existing, somewhat decrepit, but existing when it was a sandcastle. So virtually everything you see here is the same as what was there at the sandcastle, basically a 2-story facade all the way across. So what's proposed is to increase the number of rooms, and so the differences are the facade remains the same, but there's hotel rooms backfilled behind that. If you go to the prior picture, that's essentially right there a false wall right now so that it matches what was at the sandcastle previously in terms of height and scale along Rehoboth Avenue. If you're up on the pool deck looking down, you're looking down into an empty area behind that. So that would become infilled with rooms, so that itself doesn't add any other bulk, although it does count towards gross floor area and FAR. And then up above would be additional interior space up here, and then the 4th floor that you see at the top here. So again, that's what you see now. Visually, all that's added is essentially, where's my cursor? This part right here, again, visually. So I think that just gives some better context to what it is we're looking to do. So flipping back to the plans, I'm going to run through these quickly, and if I say something wrong, Larry, just, prod me a little bit. But the first one is just the lower level parking. That's unchanged. And as we go through these, you will see in the plans you have, the additional space is shaded in blue. The renovation or repurposing of interior space is shaded in sort of a pinkish orange color. And between the two parking levels, there's 73 total spaces and 70 are required. The next one is the upper level parking and first floor of the hotel. You can see the food and beverage operations here, check-in here, parking back here. This is one area that will be new for interior gross floor area and FAR. Right now, it's kind of a carve-out. If you're walking down next to the fire company, you'd come, lost my cursor again. Where'd it go? Do we have it on there? I'm moving it too fast, I guess. If you're going down beside the fire company up here, you would just be able to see open air right there, and there's actually propane tanks and some other things. So that's planned to be enclosed so there can be storage. One of the things that they found with renovating an existing hotel is just not a lot of existing storage space. So this would be one area of storage. The next space is the 2nd floor, and this is where we get into a little more. If you recall from those facades, this was existing interior space being converted to 2 new hotel rooms. And then, again, the blue is additional space, which is hotel rooms here and here. And then, I should say also, it's hard to tell on here, but right here, that's a break room because there's really not a lot of great break space for the hotel staff that has to work. The next one is the 3rd floor. This converts an existing spot that we don't know if Sandcastle was using as a hotel room or not, but that makes that a hotel room. And then the rest are additional hotel room spaces all around. There's my cursor again. It's hard to see all the way across the room. All around here, those are new hotel rooms. And those are the ones that are next to the pool. So if you're on the pool deck up here looking out over Rehoboth Avenue, there would be an entrance here that goes in here, plus a little bar area to those new rooms, and then a hallway that goes back to the stairs, and then also connects with the existing hotel rooms in the back. And I should add, too, that there's offices here and here next to the pool for the operators of the hotel. And then the next level is the 4th floor, and there's just meeting space up here. And that comes off the existing 4th floor. There's hotel rooms that exist on the back side of the building, so that hallway would just be connected from that stair tower, or the hallway that's connected to the stair tower then would have an entrance into this additional conference room. These are just elevations. The top one here is if you're looking at the hotel from Second Street, and like, for example, if you're standing on the side of the post office and looking at it, really there's not much on this side that's changing at all. You can see the Sirocco entrances and then the hotel and the hotel balconies and the entrance to the parking area. This is the back of the hotel, like if you're standing at the base of the water tower looking at the hotel, that's what you would see. Again, that hasn't changed extensively. This is the front from Rehoboth Avenue. And again, this part of the facade here is already there, so visually windows would be added along there. And then the third floor here would be added on that pool deck, plus this additional meeting space, conference room up top. And then the bottom one is if you're standing in the city's municipal lot, and the existing hotel is right here. The one thing that's important here is that this shows that existing facade line, if you could follow my cursor. So again, the hotel rooms in here are tucked more or less behind that. The new hotel rooms are along here. Then there's this fourth floor up at the top, along with the elevator towers, really. That's what you see there. The one thing, too, is there is a dumpster that exists. That location is not changing. It's not shown on this elevation, but that is by agreement with the city. Actually, the Sandcastle had a dumpster located there, and they had a license agreement with the city. The mayor and commissioners approved a transfer of that license agreement to Rehoboth Hotel LLC. And actually, the usage of that has improved significantly because there's a trash compactor system that's on there, so that instead of trash trucks coming daily, they come, once, maybe twice a week, and that's it. But anyhow, that's the elevations. And then so we're back to what I talked about before with the new rooms tucked in here and then the additional rooms up top. And that essentially concludes our presentation. I will tell you that we thought about, given the lateness of the exchange of reports and your ability to prepare, whether it was worth even having today's meeting, but we decided it was a good idea so that you could get an initial overview of the project, meet the design team who will be speaking before you. Maybe that'll give you some context to when you review the plans. And then, as I said, we can then have a more meaningful meeting down the line to have a better discussion of whatever questions or concerns that you have. One last thing I would like to add is I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Ms. Womack, but I don't know that for the public or whomever, our January 22 response was embedded in the agenda. I just want to make sure that's part of the record, that's all. Not a big deal, but so that's what we have. We'll certainly take anything under advisement, but I think the better course of action is if you just want to, sort of consolidate your questions or thoughts and then give them to us so that we can come back with answers next time around. You have our answers to the initial concerns in the
And I'd
Nat's
like to
report.
hear from the building inspector on some of this. And I have questions on a couple of things, but you want to go first?
Mr. Janis?
Thank you, Chair. Just to start off, just a brief, to let you know what happened with the report. We had formulated one, we had distributed it at the beginning of January. There were some questions from the applicant, and we held a very quick meeting to go over those differences. And this is, the report that you have is the result of that meeting. And we felt it best to do a red line document so that you could see exactly what changed from our initial report to what was reissued in the interest of time, and try to save you some time to decipher what exactly was changed with these plans. To speed up this process, I think, as I normally do, I'll just read our red comments rather than the entirety of the report, if you allow me to. Again, this is application 0724-06. This is for the Coast Hotel located at 123 2nd Street here in our lovely city of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We'll start with the initial comments on page 7 of 14 is where we hit our first comment, and that's in relation to the elevation. And I would say that note that there is a measured elevation that represents the elevation at the top of the elevator shaft and HVAC room. This elevation was measured at 43 feet 11 inches, which is within the 50-foot maximum height for mechanical systems and embellishments. Yep. Moving on, we'll hit page 8 of 14. And this is in relation to the restaurant bar area, our first comment for the restaurant enclosure. As the applicant is not proposing any modifications to the bar or restaurant area and therefore may continue these operations as they were not restricted under the previous zoning regulations in place at the time or original approval and are considered a legal nonconforming use. Nonetheless, we suggest that the applicants consider options to comply insofar as is reasonable with the updated code restrictions. And then the second would be for the bar areas. The plans identify an existing bar area on the first floor adjacent to the restaurant area. While this existing bar is not compliant with current code, it is not required to be modified as it was not included in the proposed area of remodeling as considered a legal nonconforming use that may remain. However, the applicant is proposing a new bar area on the third floor adjacent to the outside patio and pool area. 27019B.5 restricts bars from being located outside of an enclosed restaurant area. And we said that please remove this proposed bar area from your plans. We brought this to Vince's attention, and he may have response to it. I would let him offer that. Off-street parking, the applicant is proposing to add 10 new guest rooms to their hotel. However, their existing parking garage provides sufficient parking spots to comply with the current requirements for the number of parking spaces to be provided. Specifically, the final total of hotel guest rooms proposed is 70 units. The number of parking spaces existing is 73, and therefore the proposed plans are compliant with the requirement. As a note, the existing parking spaces do not currently comply with the size requirements in current zoning code, as many of the spaces are too narrow. Because the applicant is not required to modify the parking garage area to increase the number of spaces and is not otherwise proposing any other modifications to this area, the applicant is not required to provide this parking area and the parking spaces into compliance, not required to bring this parking area and the parking spaces into compliance with the current standards, as this is a legal nonconforming use. This determination applies to parking space sizes, lane width, and ADA designated spaces. Regardless, we would suggest that the applicant consider integrating ADA-compliant parking spaces into their parking plans to the degree feasible. Some of their existing guest rooms and proposed guest rooms are shown to be ADA accessible. It stands to reason that these guests would welcome the provisions of compatible parking options. Therefore, we suggest that it is in the applicant's own best interest to provide these amenities for their guests with these needs. Loading and unloading, similar to the rationale provided above regarding parking space compliance, because the applicant is not required to and is not proposing to modify their parking structure or their service area, they cannot be required to comply with the loading dock requirements that were not in place in the regulations at the time the structure was originally approved and constructed. Therefore, the hotel itself is a legal nonconforming use as it pertains to the requirements for a loading dock. Circulation turn aisle. Please refer to the explanation regarding compliance with parking space sizing provided above for the rationale for the reasoning as to why the applicant does not need to comply with the turning aisle and circulation standards as currently reflected in the zoning code. The parking areas are considered to be an existing legal nonconforming use. Signs. It is not completely clear if the applicant is proposing to modify any of the existing signage on the building. Please simply indicate on future plans if the existing signage will remain or if there will be any new or modified signage. All new or modified signage must obtain a separate permit approved by the building inspector. Signage or awnings that encroach on or above the city sidewalk / right-of-way will require a license agreement within the city, with the city. Trash. The applicant is proposing to continue to utilize the trash facilities of the neighboring property, the City of Rehoboth Beach, City Hall, and municipal parking area for collection and removal of trash from this site. This use has been in place for a long period of time, and B&L have been provided with the use agreement and lease that have been established for this purpose. Because the applicant is not modifying the use of the trash facilities, this is a legal nonconforming use. And then that's the gist of the red comments. We did do some modifications to our square footage tabulations, and I would just ask you to look to those revised tables there.
All right.
Certainly take any questions at this time.
Can I just ask, Matt, it is being built on this, it's the same footprint as the sandcastle. That is not
Absolutely it
changed,
is.
right?
That's
Which is
right.
why it is non-conforming.
Correct.
Legally non-conforming. Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a few questions. I didn't have much time to review this at all, but a couple of things popped out, and they're really just generalized questions. You indicated that there's a current external storage area that has propane tanks, propane storage, and that's going to become an internal storage area?
Yes, but not for the propane.
That's my question. There's not going to be any explosives?
Right. No,
Okay.
that's right.
It's a storage area, so the propane tanks will go away?
Yeah.
Or be
moved.
relocated
Yeah,
to
they'll be
another open
relocated,
area?
Right. I should have been more clear on
Okay.
that.
The other question is with regard to ADA parking, which is, I have again, I should backtrack. We don't have full-size drawings to work from, which we always request in the past. We have D-size drawings. I'm assuming you have those?
I believe we have drawings, that is correct, and I think the expediency of this coming to is the reason why you probably haven't received
I
those.
figured that, but I'd like to make the formal request for the D-size drawings for this
Absolutely.
application. Because you really can't get a good perspective when you're looking at miniature stuff, and it doesn't matter if you have it in a PDF form and you look at only so much at a time. So engineering size drawings, D-size are definitely requested. With regard to the ADA parking, and it wasn't clear in the letter or in the comments.
Excuse me, Mike, could you
Oh, I'm sorry. With regard to the ADA parking, and it wasn't clear that with the totality of the hotel rooms, are the ADA parking spaces compliant with federal law for ADA parking spaces? Because you're increasing the hotel, and some of the rooms you just said are going to be ADA either designed specifically as ADA accessible. So the question is, I don't think there's a grandfathering of ADA requirements. ADA is an absolute federal level. It's irrelevant what we may say. So my question is, do you have the required number of ADA spaces that meet current code, federal code? That's a question.
Yeah, no, and I'm taking all this down, so, yeah, we'll have.
So I don't expect an answer at this
I'll
moment.
just note, Vince, that there have probably been 4 ADA federal cases filed from Sussex County in the last month or 2. So somebody's going around checking these things. So it's in your...
I'm aware of one of them anyway, not any of these clients, but yeah.
So you really want to make sure you're good there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the other one. And the other one is really just a simple one. And I wasn't sure whose dimensions were off, but there was a comment with regard to the particular software that you used may have resulted in discrepancies. And the only comment I wanted to make is we have had in the last 13 years a couple of certified engineering drawings that were absolutely positively wrong when you did the analysis. And the licensed Delaware engineer said, oops, well, we used CAD and we didn't check it. I would just like to say that the drawings we get better be absolutely correct, period.
Understood, and that was, and Matt can chime in on this. It's not that there's an error, it's that ours are correct, and I don't think anybody said they're incorrect. It's just that when they're created, they can be very specific, and then I think, Matt, what you're doing is basically applying an overlay software that just does takeoff calculations based on our drawings. So, you get differences based on the width of a line of a wall or that sort of thing, and we had a good conversation with Matt and Mary Ellen and the city's attorney, when we talked about all this. And I'll say this, first of all, we know we have to comply with FAR. We're going to have to do that on the final sealed drawing. So that's not an issue. And talking with them, you all were satisfied, I think, that we were within the tolerances. In other words, we're not getting in another room or even usable space. It's just square feet here and there that just add up based on the type of software overlay that they're applying to our drawings. So,
Right.
But understood.
That's the reason, and that's the reason I always request D-size engineering drawings, because then you can really tell what's going on. And in the example I gave, we had D-size engineering drawings, and when you inspected it and you read it, and as an engineer, I actually look at those in great detail. And when they didn't add up, and in that particular case, they were trying to build on somebody else's property, which I don't think they'd be very happy with that.
Right.
So,
I will say
drawings.
this in fairness to Matt, it's better than when you look at, because we had to do this on another case a while back, you look at old drawings of the city and it was literally rulers and pencil measurements and everything else, which was woefully inaccurate. Not that's
Perimeters?
you know. So it's gotten a lot better just trying to match the two.
And if we may, part of the reason why Matt does his measurements is to, one, confirm the inclusion of all appropriate areas in FAR, as well as to just overall validate the dimensioning that is provided on the plans. And so long as they're generally consistent, we do rely on the engineering drawings for those precise and accurate measurements. But we do our due diligence to make sure that we are in general agreement with those values. Is that fair to say?
Indeed. And the only thing I would add that is if you're involved in this industry a lot, Mr. Ellison will tell you, you cannot copy a floor plan. If you copy a floor plan, the scale is completely gone at that point. So you cannot measure to that copy anymore. We rely on what the applicant puts on their documents. There is a sign and seal that the engineer says this is the document that we're providing, and we trust that sign and seal, and then we confirm by performing our own measurements.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify, that's right.
That's the only initial questions I have.
All right, sir.
Well, I have related questions about parking, Mike, so I'm glad you brought up the ADA. I mean, I understand the grandfather, so my question is two-part. One's about ADA. I'll set that aside for a moment. The other is about parking in general. And I understand that it's grandfathered, and so they do not have to meet the requirement of the 162 square feet, the 9 by 18 parking space for the existing hotel. However, it seems to me that since the parking spaces are required per room, and the rooms are new, and the rooms themselves have to meet current code, correct? The new rooms.
Correct.
Then the parking spaces that go with those rooms should meet current code.
So that's a very interesting point. The parking spaces already exist.
Yeah.
So the garage is built. The additional parking spaces that these rooms would require already exist as is. So they're not.
I think the point is that there's currently 60, I mean, there's more, but there's 60 non-conforming spaces in terms of what's non-conforming and required under the code. And now there'd be 72 non-conforming spaces, and it seems like it could be an expansion of the non-conforming piece of this. So something to take a closer look at.
Understandable.
And for the ADA, I agree with Mike in terms of making certain there are enough ADA, and I agree. I wondered about whether the federal standards would be grandfathered, but there's a practical reason for that. I've seen this all over town where renovations are made, and they go, projects are grandfathered, and ADA compliance in this city is sorely lacking everywhere. And there are, restaurants on a second floor without any accessibility at all. I would say most restaurants in the city do not have accessible restrooms. So I think whatever we can do to, and I take your point, Matt, and I'm certainly glad you wrote it in here, that since they have ADA accessible rooms, they really should try to expand that accessibility, elsewhere in the hotel. So I guess I would ask, are the restrooms associated with the restaurant? I understand the renovation and all that was grandfathered, but are the restrooms associated with the public spaces, are those ADA accessible currently? They are?
Yes, they are.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, I just think that's something where as a city that we're inadequate with, and so anything we can do to improve that would be great.
One thing, just for the record, too, just before we get too far, is there's actually 73 parking spaces there now. Bill, I think you'd said 72, but there's 73.
Okay. Yeah. And
more than 60.
Yeah, definitely more.
And then
It'd be a different conversation if there were just 60.
So the other big problem is, Matt, and you pointed it out, I think that bar on the third floor does not meet code.
So I'll say that we think it does.
I gather you do.
Let me put that out there, and you saw the reasons why. I had a conversation with Mr. Walton about that, and he was looking into it. So this is one of those I would say that let's deal with at the next meeting. So.
Yeah. So our office has looked into that, and I can definitively say we still have a disagreement. So we'll continue to work and look at that.
Bar area. Right, it has not been allowed since the 90s, and it is so much a part of the DNA of this city that there are no freestanding bars, period.
Yeah, but here, I'll just real quick. So, because we've looked at this, and I'm not asking anybody to agree or disagree, but I just want you to hear our point on that. Is the code is really specific about restaurants. And to your point, that's very true about restaurants, okay? You can't have a freestanding bar that was a tenant, in a building that is standalone building or, underneath the last one we did. You couldn't have, whatever bar, but you can have hotels because they're differently defined and regulated things in the city's code than restaurants. Restaurants are a specific animal. This is what you can and can't do in a restaurant. Hotels are a specific animal, and here's what you can and can't do in a hotel. And that doesn't say anything about whether you can have a bar or the square footage or anything else. So there's two different separate silos that deal with these two different issues. On top of that, at the state level, there's also a completely different licensure requirement. We're licensed as a hotel, which means that the entire premises, every hallway room, whatever, the bar upstairs, you can have food and beverage. Well, they don't care about food, beverage service all over the place, which is consistent with hotel operations and expectations. The other thing I would say though is that with this one, it's also not. It's not a standalone bar that you would think if somebody just tried to open up a bar on,
Right, no, I understand that.
Wilmington Avenue. It's on the 4th floor, or 3rd floor. It's key card controlled. You literally cannot get to it unless you're a hotel guest. And so, in that sense, it's an amenity just to the pool. So, but my point being, the larger one is that they're two totally separate silos within
Well,
the
except
code.
the bar is not defined in the code. Only bar area is defined in the code, and it's
But that's only under
defined as part of a
restaurants.
restaurant.
Right, yeah, exactly, as part of a
Well,
restaurant.
that's because that's the only kind that's allowed.
No, I would disagree with that because that's not prohibited with regard to hotels. It talks about that's the only kind of that's allowed in a restaurant, which is a separate silo, but there's no prohibition on that in hotels.
I don't think what the ABCC does is relative. It matters to our code. They have their process. We have our process.
Yeah, but it's an explanation just to the broader context of it. I agree with that, but I think what is relevant is the code, and as I said, it's an apples and oranges comparison.
So, are you saying that you would expect to get a permit of compliance for that bar?
I don't think we need one.
See, there you go. Okay.
Because the permit of compliance only applies to restaurants, and this isn't a restaurant, it's a hotel.
That's why
I think we
needs
just
to be by the restaurant.
Which it already is. They have one there.
Well, I know.
Yeah, right.
I think we'll just stay tuned.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. We'll work through it.
Yeah.
We will.
Is that the end of your presentation, sir?
That's the end of my, thank you, and that is
Hey,
the end of my
you could try to get a variance if you wanted to have one up there.
Well, yeah, the first opportunity is that we don't need one, obviously, so, an appeal or a variance, whichever. But, yeah.
So I just want to make a comment about the ADA, back to the ADA parking spaces. I don't know the answer to this, but I have to wonder whether under the ADA and ADA case law, if you are offering accommodations, in the same way that if you offer a job, it includes not just the work the person does from 9 to 5 or whatever, and how much they get paid. There are also the terms and conditions of employment, so it affects accommodations, a whole bunch of other things. I'm wondering if you sort of offer to the public ADA compliant hotel rooms, part of the terms and conditions, if you will, of making that offer to the public in a situation like this where, I would guess 95% of their customers arrive by car. And the whole thing is set up, it even looks, like a motel. So I would just suggest to you that might not be so discretionary. In addition to the fact it might be a good business idea, it might be legally required.
So I will tell you, I don't want to get really deep into the weeds. It's something that we looked at early on, and to your point, and I understand the point, and I'm not disagreeing with it, but what the complicating factor here is that we're dealing with an existing hotel, and that there's sort of a balancing test involved in that, at least from what we saw. But we'll look at it further, to make sure that we're good.
And I might just put a plug in here that this was a project that should have come through site plan originally. And just the challenges we're talking about now should have been remedied at the outset if it had come through site plan. Just for context, I just want to say that.
Yeah, I want to respond to that quickly because I know we're at a little bit of a time crunch. But on this, the site plan review, I think, actually was revised as a result of this hotel.
Never revised.
been revised.
What's
Well,
there
it's been,
now?
the discussion started, I guess, as a result of this. But I want to clear.
Substantial renovation is already in there. So that's-
It
Well,
needs-
but here's the issue, and I want to clear the air on this because I don't want you all to get off on the wrong foot in terms of thinking how this went, because we had to explain this at some length to the Board of Adjustment. When my folks bought the sandcastle, they did due diligence prior to their purchase, and they had engineering reports, structural reports done, everything with regard to the hotel. In those reports, there were disclaimers about, because it's an operating hotel, the engineer can't go cutting holes in the walls to see physically how the structure is. And on the firehouse side of the building, once they started getting into the renovations of it, it was steel and metal construction studs that were virtually non-existent once they started getting into it. And it was a health and safety issue. There was no way to shore that up or make it, frankly, had we gotten a good storm, regardless of renovations, that side of the building was probably coming down. And it was a building that was cobbled together. When you look at the old plans of it, there were multiple buildings that were just, a facade was slapped on the front of it. It was a badly constructed and structurally unsound building. At the time that was discovered, I know our construction team immediately worked with Matt to remedy this health and safety issue, because there was really a concern at that point once they got in there, because that is an entrance into the municipal parking lot. People are coming and going through there. It was an issue. There was not time to deal with, the demolition halt for the summer or any of that sort of stuff. I want you to understand that there wasn't any attempt to get beyond or behind the city's rules. It was a real issue. And I don't know that we want to get into it here. We can show you the pictures if you want, but I just wanted to give some context on that, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about that, and I just don't want it to be an unfair misunderstanding.
I understand, and I wasn't suggesting there was any wrongdoing on your part, but it does, when you sit here and talk about we're sort of now, it's non-conforming because it's grandfathered, when frankly it met all 4 criteria to have come through. So that's an oops on the city. Because, we wouldn't be here talking about ADA and that, because they would already be there. So it's just a plug for, but we don't hold it against you.
All right. Yeah, well, I know, and it's not necessarily even you, just there was a lot of, we talked earlier about media, social media, rumors and everything. I just wanted to clear the air on that here about that too.
All right.
And I know you wanted questions. We were going to respond. We're going to give them feedback, right, and list questions. I would say, though, don't expect it to be, all encompassing, because since we've just gotten it, there may be additional questions that come up next time.
I understand that, but if we could, get a start on that, we can hit the ground running. So.
Yeah, we can get a start, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yes, Mr.
One short, and this is for Matt, if Matt is listening.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned about emergency egress from the new rooms. Some of them are at the end of pretty long hallways, and I'm wondering if you have investigated that, or certainly I would ask that you would.
Absolutely. So that is a concern, and measurements do need to be provided for that. It might be advisable for the applicant to show exit corridors and pathways on their next drawing.
Yeah, and we're aware of that too, because there's some corridors, the way they're designed, just to accommodate that, with fire doors and distances and things. So we can certainly provide that. Yeah.
Just move a bar stool. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
That's a great spot up there.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Look forward to coming back with a more.
Always welcome.
Our February meeting is changing, too. It's going to be the 28th.
That's what I thought. Somebody
Yeah,
had mentioned that to me when it was Matt, so okay, we'll make sure that's on our calendar. Is it still a Friday without looking?
Yeah, it
It's
is a
20th?
Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next, we're kind of on an expedited schedule here. We're trying to accommodate the concept review for CanalSide Inn property located in the R2 residential district. Tax map number 334-13.20-178.00, lots 34 and 35, 34 6th Street. And I understand, I believe that your counsel is not available today, is that right?
that-
Okay.
To bring it
Well,
back
please
to
come
site
forward.
plan. But we haven't talked about that really specifically.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Brian Deptula. I am owner of CanalSide Inn, 3435 6th Street. I've owned the property since 2019. In the early parts of 2024, my wife and business partner and I decided to sell. During the course of that, we met Mr. Sean Rupert, a developer with local ties who's completed multiple projects within the city limits of Rehoboth in southern Delaware. And we had a discussion about what the concept would look like if he were to redevelop the property. We had some communication with Mr. Janis, multiple communications through which he guided us to have an initial concept review. We submitted that review, and now we're here in front of you to get the taste for your appetite and whether you have some motivation to do this project at all. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Sean, who's going to speak more to the project.
Do you have a slide deck, sir, that the secretary needs to put up?
No, we don't have slides. We just have the handouts that you have.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. If we make it any further, we'll have slides. like I'd been introduced by
Well,
Brian.
we have them here. I mean, I don't, is this, what is this?
Yeah,
Yeah, we did-
it's
you did
8
submit-
pages, this
yeah, yeah.
portfolio. That's it.
Um,
I just don't have it on slides.
That is, we do have it available.
Oh, did you make
electronically.
slides for me?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
So do you want to
Wanna hold
try to
up?
put that up?
Yeah, that would be helpful. wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then show me how to move through it.
He's out? Yeah.
Let's see here, what can we do for these fine folk?
That's yesterday's, Matt.
Yep. Guys are on the ball.
Here it is.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I just moved the mouse around to change pages.
Yeah, let me try to do that. And then basically just control your mouse.
Oh,
To do
awesome.
up and down.
Cool,
All right?
thanks. Yes, sir. Thank you. Just for a quick intro, I know Brian had explained who I am. My name is Sean Rupert. I own a home building company called Opal. We've done 3 projects in Sussex, one in Canal Corcoran, my own home at 104 Newcastle Street, and we're currently doing a historic renovation at 401 Bayard, which we're super excited about. Most of what we do, we've done about 300 homes in DC and close in Montgomery County. We do a lot of historic conversions and renovations. So we've won about 12 national awards for design. We have our own architect. His name is Greg Sparhawk, who did the plans here. He lives in Colorado, which I think is a good reason. Like, a lot of our homes have a really good positive energy about them. When you walk through the homes, they don't feel like a traditional home. They have a really interesting point of view. And a lot of that comes from Greg just not living on the East Coast. He did grow up in Annapolis, so he does understand our aesthetics. And what we've designed here is what he's calling a tidewater architecture. So what we're talking about is a proposed redevelopment of the CanalSide Inn at the corner of Canal Street and 6th, as you can see on the map. Currently, as Brian explained, it's a 13-unit motel that's been for sale for a little while, owned by him and his wife. The property is currently zoned, as you know from the memo, as R2, which there's a whole bunch of housing, residential things that fit into that bucket. And under the comprehensive plan that I've spent a lot of time reading through, it seems like what we've designed fits it. That's my definition. That's certainly open to interpretation by you guys. What we're looking at here is just some of the problems that Brian has experienced with neighbors and complaints about noise and parking, and how changing this motel into a residential use could eliminate some of those potential problems with the reduced occupancy, reduced car trips. The lot coverage right now, as you can see, everything painted in blue is the lot, the current lot on the parking area. That's 100% lot coverage. We'd be reducing it to about 42% lot occupancy. And of course, there's 0 trees, maybe 1 or 2 on the property. We would be increasing that substantially. On the satellite view, you can kind of see, this is where we came up with the idea of doing condo townhomes, where there are condo townhomes directly to the north and directly to the south. There are single-family homes to the southeast, I would call it. And then, of course, on the other side of the canal, which doesn't matter for us, but there are tons of condos, townhomes over there. The site plan that Greg and we came up with is interesting. There is a condo townhome project in Dewey called the Beach House. It's right across from the Rusty Rudder. And if you ever have a chance to go down, it's Dickinson Street. I used to own a home there for a number of years. And that's where this concept came. This is a triangular lot. That's one of the reasons that we feel that if we get to the point where we would be going for a variance, for the variances that we need, the shape of this lot is one of our main problems. And one of the sources that we think that we could justify a variance. With the shape, Greg has come up with this design of the townhomes to kind of utilize all the corners. And also, let me get, what's up there? Cursor had to be on this page. So the Tidewater design, what we're thinking about here are homes that feel very pedestrian friendly. We're not doing a traditional townhome that would be 3 stories tall with a penthouse on top of it or with a gable on top of the 3rd floor. We're thinking of something a little bit shorter that has more of the height of a single family home. And then the pedestrian friendliness comes in play where the roof line is lower, the outdoor spaces are closer to the street, and then doing that 2-tiered deck system brings in that Tidewater effect with the dormers on the roof. That's very much that aesthetic. The relief that we would need are listed right here on the right-hand side. There's 4. The floor area ratio. Currently, the building is about 10,000 square feet. We would be looking to rebuild about the same amount of square footage, but that is not allowed in the zone right now. We'd be doubling what's allowed now. The lot coverage, we're just asking for a small increase of the lot coverage, which I'm sure that Greg could figure out a way around that. I'm not really sure without him being here why we went to 42. I'm sure that we could have gotten to 40, but in the lot area per dwelling. Right now, this is the tough part about the code with the triangular lot and the code that requires 5,000 square foot per dwelling unit. It's a little tough once you get into this explanation of this zone and how you get to 5,000 square feet per dwelling unit when what's allowed in this zone is a multitude of kinds of housing. So if it was a garden apartment, which is allowed, or a duplex, which is allowed, that would mean that we'd have to have at least a minimum of an acre. If it was a garden apartment, it could need to be 2 or 3 acres. So maybe that's been explained in the code that I don't understand, and so I'm open to that interpretation. And then, of course, the setbacks. Just with how the building is currently situated there and what we would design to, I would imagine that if we get further along in this process, we could get pretty close to the setbacks, so that would be required. Yeah, and then the hardship that would come up during the variances, just the triangular lot isn't addressed in the code. So there's no rectangle. The normal lot in this code is a certain distance by a certain depth, and this has none of that, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you already own the property and this is your application, or is this a contingent kind of situation where your purchase contract is contingent and you're
No,
seeking-
Brian owns it. We would be doing it together.
Got it. Got it.
Is the idea about the 3 to 4 bedroom houses that like 2 of them would be 3 bedroom and 2 of them would be 4 bedroom, or what? It says 3 to 4.
No, the interior homes would be about 2,100 square feet and 3 bedrooms. If we do a basement, it would be a 4th bedroom in the basement. The end units would be the same bedroom count, but those homes would be about 400 square feet larger. Same bedroom count, though.
You know, if your basement, you've got to count it from
Right.
the far. If it's over 6, 8.
I just had that conversation with Corey. I'm stand corrected.
I think that might make your FAR problem worse.
Yeah.
Also, when you say sleeping up to 6 to 8 occupants, even a 3-bedroom house, if it's a rental, 8 occupants are allowed because it's 2 per bedroom plus 2?
Right. That was when I was thinking that it could potentially be 4 bedrooms.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But a 4-bedroom house, if there's a legal bedroom in the basement, it would be 10. That's what I'm saying. It's,
okay.
It's 2 per bedroom plus 2.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
So, yeah. So if it was all 4 bedrooms, it'd be like occupancy would be 40, and occupancy would be more than what the hotel has now, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Is the height, do you know what the height is? I see the drawing there of the 2
Yeah,
stories
we have
and
it
the dormer.
designed at 35 feet.
It is 35 feet, okay?
Will you be developing this as fee simple lots, or is it one lot with a condominium building on it, or how
Yeah,
is,
it-
how's
they would be,
gonna
it would be a
owned?
condo, townhome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that being said, I'd just like to add that there is a condo declaration plan for that process that is acknowledged in our code.
Okay.
Again, getting way ahead of ourselves, but I want you to be aware of it.
Right.
Do you have a schematic that, I see the existing hotel on, a sketch showing the lot lines? Do you have something to show us where, I guess this is one here. I see it.
Yep.
It's that, got it.
That's an old survey, but it's pretty accurate. We had someone check on it.
Oh, I like the way it looks.
It is
You got
nice.
some challenges, but
Yeah,
I like the way
I
it
mean,
looks.
the 5,000 square foot per lot was put into the code in 2005 through a public referendum. So for 20 years, that has been the rule, and it was specifically to reduce density and reduce the number of houses on a lot, because there had been a number of townhouse developments going up. So it was put there purposely. I don't have any way to know, can't even predict what the Board of Adjustment would say, or whether you would be able to potentially do 2 instead of 4. I have no idea.
I'm not an attorney, and I tried to do some review prior to this, and as is being pointed out, we have an R2 zone that allows for all sorts of residential uses, but there was nothing I was able to find other than the single-family house data. So that raises all sorts of areas of concern for me, because once again, our code is not complete. There are unaddressed areas of our code. They maintained an R2 designation, but the mathematics of what you can build in an R2, the code is silent, as far as I can, as a non-attorney, can determine.
Matt, and maybe you've looked at this, and maybe it's unwelcome, but if they kept the footprint, I guess that footprint's way too small for you of the existing building?
We did look
to
at
make
that
it
as
work?
well. We did look at that. It's small, and it's kind of close to the road, and yeah.
Yeah.
And, just as a general comment, it is a residential neighborhood, it's R2, while a hotel is a permitted use. And I live on a street where I had a hotel formerly across from me. It's converting to residential at some point, which I have to recuse myself from those discussions, and will. But I can't help but think that the neighbors would prefer to see an appropriately designed, appropriate density townhome development. Had the property across the street from me, it is currently R1. If for some reason it had been R2, I would certainly have supported a townhouse cluster arrangement across the street from me, as opposed to a by-the-night business of some sort. So conceptually, I would like to see this continue to develop, but as I've already commented, there are some gaps in our code, and I'll be interested in how that conversation continues.
Right.
I presume these lots couldn't even be subdivided. Do they have 100 feet? No. Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe so without.
Because of the 4,000-foot turnaround thing?
Correct, yeah. And even to do that, even in its very state, they would not have a 4,000 square foot rectangle
Right, yeah, that's
to just tear down and rebuild in a residential facility.
And was this always one lot?
That's a great question. I would have to go way back into the history of this prior to the
'Cause if
rezoning
it
for
wa-
the
if it
Jones
wasn't,
Lane.
then it could potentially be divided, but.
Correct.
But I didn't, I had wondered if it was always one. It looks like it must have been, because how would it have ever been anything else with that space?
Yeah, and even the surveys submitted by the applicant on this do show a line coming down through the center of that, so there might be two lots there. I would have to check with our GIS system, which is, of course, currently down.
Do you have any title work? Have you,
I would imagine Brian does. I came to City Hall and I did the historic, what is that release that you can get through the government for information?
FOIA.
Freedom,
FOIA.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that. There's not much in the folder. It's like 6 pages, nothing that was very helpful at all.
but, you don't have to answer this, but if you've done any financing on the property, the lender would have required a title insurance policy, and someone would have prepared that who would have this kind of back title information about how the property was or was not configured historically.
And even when we would go to set up, we would have a title search done as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
We
Would come from the
did a
county.
title search, and we do have title insurance.
Well, you may want to share that with the building inspector just to help him advance his research as to, and what is being suggested here is there may be some other way to help you if this was more than one lot historically, that's all.
Right.
Well, then you could have two
two
homes that they would be single family, but I would think that value would be somewhat, might not make up for 4 attached houses, but it might make it profitable.
Yeah, just a thought, just to see what your options are.
So is the next step the Board of Adjustment then? That's what you're planning to do next, or?
I think that we'll have to, our attorney is Scott Wilcox, and I think that we'll just talk to him about today and regroup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
Only that I'm here to help them through the process in whatever facet they choose to go through. And then, obviously, they'll be before you for whatever iteration comes about, and look forward to them being creative.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. All right. Building and licensing report. And do you mind, Mary Ellen, would you please set up a folder on the city website and put written reports into it so we can keep track over time?
Sure, yeah, yes, and I have been sending them to, had to clean this one up, have been sending them to Ann for meeting minutes, so.
Yeah, they were just go ahead.
Oh, I didn't, I've been sending them to you after
Yeah.
the meeting.
But you understand what I'm asking for, something that historically, somebody could come down back 5 years from now and say, well, what did building and licensing say was in the pipeline?
Sure,
That
sure.
would be
Yeah, but-
helpful.
So would you be looking for Ann to set it up on the legislative portal?
If that's available, yes. If it's not, I don't want to unduly burden the city secretary is a little busy. Okay, well, then would you do 2?
Famous last words.
Sure, and I have the ones that I've previously done. So,
Yeah, that'd be
yeah, so
good
we
too.
can do that, sure.
Well, go ahead and proceed, please.
Sure, happy to do so. So, a couple of plans that we have in the pipeline, 228 Rehoboth, I don't have any new update on that. That plan is still we're still waiting to hear back from the applicant on that. That is for a mixed-use building across the street here. So we received review plans and completed the checklist and found some additional information needed to be submitted. So we sent the checklist to the applicant on 11/12/24, so we're still awaiting revised plans on that. So no new update on that. The 42, we have a application for a partition on 42 Columbia, and we received that on 11/21. And completed our completeness review, and that's in the queue for review. Beachview Motel, that is currently on schedule to go to the BOA on February 24th. They have a list of, per their discussion at the last meeting, they have some variances that they need to secure before they can submit a site plan to the city for review by you all. Two more on 104 Scarborough Avenue. There was some discussion with our legal team regarding whether it's a minor or major subdivision. We did secure an opinion that it is a minor subdivision. So, and that application was received on December 12th. So that, and we reviewed that, and that application is complete. So that is in the queue for review. And the last one.
4 lots?
That's 4 lots,
Four,
yes.
okay.
Yes. And the last is the lot consolidation for One Rehoboth. So the new plans, on the Oceanside subdivision, that's the old Baymart site, as we reported last meeting, there's application was received on 10/24, and per 236-12D, the application was forwarded to Secretary Dewey for review. A letter was sent by yourself through Mr. Larson to the applicant on December 6th, asking for additional information. So I assume, I guess I'll ask you, Secretary Dewey, did you receive any additional information from the applicant yet on that?
I was going to ask you the same question
no,
because
I
they
did
don't
not.
have my address.
Okay. I think it might be a little bit delayed because when they had reached out to me a week or two ago, and they said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Hey, did you get the letter?" They're like, "No, we didn't." So, so I
didn't get it.
They said they did not receive it. So, no. So I did. I have sent them the letter, so they're like, "Got it," and we will be looking at it and submitting their requested information as soon as possible. So perhaps that's the reason for the delay.
All right.
Can we, quick, is that
Of course.
all of the ones on the?
I've got a couple more, but,
Okay,
but you have a
great.
question?
Keep going, yeah. No, I was going to ask about next one, go ahead.
Okay, and Bellhaven, we received new plans on January 10th. So that is, they've submitted documentation, and that is under review. So we still need to do a review on that.
Considered a new application?
That is one of the items that we need to review on. We're meeting with our legal team on Monday to get that question answered.
Good.
One of the
Anything else?
questions, yes. Okay, plan, and then you all know what the plans are under review by the Planning Commission. We reviewed that this afternoon. Two other quick things: the status of approved plans, 413 and 415, 417 Rehoboth. Those are 3 mixed-use buildings, and plans have been submitted and to the building and licensing, and so they're currently under review. So that
nice.
project is moving forward.
Good.
And one last thing, the Mixed Use Ordinance Task Force. Myself and Wallace Montgomery have been meeting and working on gathering background information and preparing for the first meeting. We did send out an email earlier this week on some potential meeting dates and asked for responses by Monday. And folks have been very responsive, so I believe by Monday we'll hear back from everybody so we can set that meeting date. So that was it's either February 27th or 28th between 10 and 12 p.m. So that concludes my report.
All right.
Thank you very much. Well,
You're welcome.
in terms of next month, you had sent us the background information on 42 Columbia. That was the court-ordered partitioning, right? Well, and so we'll have a report, I assume, shortly. So we would have that for next month. Would we have 104 Scarborough next month? We'd have the lot consolidation for One Rehoboth.
Yes.
And we'd have 42 Columbia. Would we have 104 Scarborough or not, you think?
I think that's ambitious, but
Okay,
stranger things have happened.
We could give it a shot because we do have the BOA report and we have a couple of planning permits of compliance reports as well.
Okay.
So
All
that
right,
we're working on.
so we may only have the
May.
42 Columbia and the lot consolidation.
And the Coast Hotel.
We think, okay, you think they'll be back by then?
I would think they'd be,
I would think so.
yeah, I
seem
think
pretty
they would
anxious.
continue.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Well, now,
That'd
don't
make a
forget,
good
we're going to
agenda.
have some back and forth, questions, answers, whatnot, so a lot of that depends on the timeliness of that information.
Right.
Okay. We won't set it on the agenda for now.
Okay.
So it looks like we have 3 projects for next time, which is perfectly doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Womack, any new applications other than what's been discussed here? Okay. Well, we've had quite a few days. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Yay.
At 4.